Is unstable. ZP connecting WND. Video settings. Button.
So welcome to our webinar today.
The webinar has started.
There we go. Oh, and the webinar has now began. Welcome to today's presentation, everybody. As you filter in, I want to thank you all for joining us today. It is Tuesday, April 6th. I know 2 weeks ago we were absent. We had to impromptu cancel the webinar, so I do apologize for that. Do not worry, I will give you guys a quick little refresher over what we covered in the previous presentation. Once again, this is the Intro to Excel series. This is part 2 of 3. And today we're just going to expand a little bit further on what we covered 2 weeks ago, or 4 weeks ago in this case. So I will, again, give you guys a quick refresher on how Excel works, how cells work, columns, rows, and the different data types and uses for Excel. But before we jump into that, I want to thank you all for joining us. Once again,
Lighthouse to everyone.
If you wish to participate in tonight's discussion, you may enter your questions into the chat with Alt+H. This will allow you to type in a question and send us a chat message, which we will promptly answer. If you wish to verbally participate, Alt+Y will raise your hand and it will allow us to aggregate you to the conversation. On your phones, raise your hand button or just simply add a chat message into the little chat box. In your Mac, Command+Y will raise your hand and Command+H will let you enter a question. Telephone people, *9 will allow you to raise your hand. Obviously, you cannot type questions into a chat box on the telephone because it's not, there's no chat box there. Today, I'm being joined by Aaron Hoffman. He's the lead adaptive technology instructor supervisor. Hey, Aaron, how's it going?
Very well. How are you?
Very well, thank you. And of course, I am Eric Cifuentes, an adaptive tech instructor here at the Travis Association for the Blind. And once again, if you guys wish, if you have friends or family who are visually impaired and want to learn Excel, Word, Outlook, Windows, Internet, iOS, Android, keyboarding, just give us a call. We are available from 7 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. Monday to Friday. Our phone number is 512-647-4625. We can add that to the chat later on. Again, that's 512-647-4625. That's a direct number to myself or Aaron. Whoever's closer to the phone will respond. If you wish to email us, it's aaron.hoffman or eric.cifuentes, Sifuentes, and Hoffman is HOFFMAN, at austinlighthouse.org. You may email us questions, comments, criticisms, concerns, commentaries, or requests for instruction, and we will gladly listen to you, and I will aggregate you to our appointment and scheduling. If you are looking for classes, please let us know what sort of classes you're interested in and how you wish to apply. For example, Word. What sort of applications do you have Word usage for? Are you going into college? Maybe you just want to write recipes at home. Just give us some sort of idea of why you want to learn a particular piece of software or program or hardware. All right, so let's jump into tonight's presentation. Again, my name is Eric Cifuentes. Let's jump into it. I'm going to go ahead and open Excel.
Search box edit.
By hitting Windows.
From Austin Lighthouse.
And once I've hit Windows, I'm going to enter Excel into the chat search box.
EXC Excel app.
All right.
Enter. Opening Excel, new list box, blank workbook, 1 of 4, Alt followed by FHY2.
Let me just slow it down a tad.
Slower.
Very good. Okay, so upon opening Excel, like we discussed previously, you will be thrust into the backstage view. And in the backstage view, you see several different things or several different parts of the screen. The first part that you're thrust into is a list of Microsoft provided templates, different Excel spreadsheets that are pre-built pretty cool because you can fill them in and you can do different things. Let's see what sort of spreadsheets we have in here and what templates we have in here. We'll down arrow.
Money in Excel.
Money in Excel.
Welcome to Excel.
A welcome tutorial.
Drop dash down tutorial.
And a few other tutorials. If you wish to browse more templates, simply hit Tab.
More templates link, Alt followed by F.
And you'll see more templates link. Hitting enter on this link will put you into a search box where you can search for something like a budget template or a sales report or a Z-tape for a cash register. There's really, the possibilities are endless. It's just limited to what Microsoft uploads. There are thousands and thousands of templates. Not all of them are created equally with accessibility, but it's just a matter of shopping around. Also, I've been digging around these templates lately, and Microsoft will actually add an accessibility tag to a template. If it's accessible or if it's built for accessibility, it'll say something like budget accessible or accessible budget. Or in Word, it'll say something like accessible resume. That way, you know it's actually built with accessibility in mind. So keep an eye out for the word accessibility if you're looking for templates. If I tab once more,
Search edit.
I can search, and this will allow me to search for files on my PC or that I have access to, say on a network drive or a flash drive attached to the computer.
Open recent tab, Alt followed by F. H,
And
Y, Z.
here I'm on the recent tab. If I tab once more, I tabbed to the recent tab. And if I tab once more,
Recent list box, Eric 21.
I'll see a list of the most
From Austin
recently
Light.
opened files that I've worked with. That's pretty cool because if I just recently worked, or if there's a file that I always open for whatever reason, say a sales report that I'm always adding numbers to, or a KPI sheet, you know, key performance indicator sheet that I'm always adding new services to because I'm always working with clients, this field right here is very useful because I can just launch Excel, come to the most recently opened documents tab, and then I'll see near the top always is my KPI sheet where I can aggregate KPIs. So just use the default blank Excel template, hit escape. That'll get you out of the the backstage view and into the spreadsheet itself.
Escape. Book 1. Book 1 dash Excel sheet 1 blank A1.
Okay, so once again, book 1, sheet 1, A1. So let's give a quick recap of how this works. In front of me, there's a massive checkers board, a big board of cells, square cells, all equal and uniform in size. Each cell can house up to 8 characters. You can grow and shrink that at your leisure, but the default is just roughly 8 characters per cell. A cell is a simple square, like A1. All right. Sheets are comprised of these cells, these columns and rows. There are columns and rows running vertically, rows running horizontally and columns running vertically. Each cell is an intersection of a row and column, and each cell has its own address. Addresses designate which row and column on the sheet you're on. Okay, so let's break this down once more. Right now, I'm on sheet 1 of the workbook, book 1. To read the title bar, and I can do insert T. And again, the title bar is just the name of the document you're working inside of, coupled with the name of the program that you're working in. In this case, I'm working in book 1 of Excel. Let's do insert T.
Title is book 1 dash Excel sheet 1.
All right, book 1. Just like in Word, where it would say document 1, book is the standard measurement of data in Excel, right? A book. In a Word document, it would be a document. In an Outlook, it would be an email or calendar event. A sheet is one of many sheets in this book, right? By default, Microsoft gives you just one sheet, but you could add hundreds of sheets. Each sheet is comprised of billions of cells. Okay, so there's more than enough information in one book to fill out information about each human being living on planet Earth. So that's pretty cool. I think that's awesome. All right, so I'm trying to get some of this terminology worked out with you guys. That way that's the main thing with Excel is it introduces so many new forms and lingos to people beyond just, oh, here's a document, and if you write in the document, text appears. All right, because in Excel there's a little bit more to it than that, but it's not as complicated and daunting as it may appear. Okay, so once again, biggest unit of measurement is a book, followed by sheets. Sheets comprise books, or books are comprised of sheets. By default, there is only one sheet. A sheet is comprised of rows and columns. Each row and column is comprised of cells. So here we are at
A1.
A1. If I move to the right,
Blank B1.
I move to cell B1. If I move to the right again,
Blank C1.
I'm at C1.
Blank D1.
B1,
Blank E1.
E1,
Blank F1.
F1, into perpetuity. I'm traveling down one row and I'm moving by cells. And each time I move to the right, I'm moving down one row. However, I'm moving by column, right? Because each cell intersects at a row and column. So if I'm moving down a row, I'm moving down or I'm moving by columns. Conversely, if I move down a row, if I move down a column, I'll be moving by row. So here I'm on
F1.
F1. F is the sixth column to the right, or because column A is the leftmost column. Just as we discussed, columns are identified by letters. A, B, C, D, E, F. That's the sixth column to the right. And there are about 16,000 columns in one sheet, right? Just as we discussed, I'll go to Z1 to show
Blank
you.
G. Blank. Blank. Blank.
I'm just traveling to the right, and we're going to look for Z1, Z.
Blank. 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 Blank R1. Blank.
Yes.
Blank T1. Blank U1. Blank V1. Blank W1. Blank X1.
Hey, Eric,
blank
it's Aaron.
Y1.
Can you maximize
Yes.
your screen, please?
Oh, my
Windows up.
screen like this?
Yep, thank you.
There, fantastic. All right,
Blank Z1.
Z1. Here I am at Z1. Now, if I were to move to the right, there's no more letters, right? But that's only 26 columns. I just said there's 16,000 columns in one sheet. So if I move one more time to the right,
Blank AA1.
I'm at double A1 or AA1. Now the cycle has begun again. If I move one to the right,
Blank AB1.
I'm at AB1. And this goes once again to AZ1. And once you finish AZ1, you go to BA1. And I mean, it just continues on. Let me show you how far it goes. So I'm going to do Control right arrow to get to the end of this row.
Blank XFD1. Start of new data region.
And now I'm at XFD1. So the letters just wrapped around one another over and over and over and over again until they reach XFD1. And it's kind of just such a arbitrary combination of letters, I'd say. I honestly thought that Excel should just go all the way to ZZZ1, although that would be kind of superfluous, I think, since I don't think anyone has ever really needed to go as far as XFD1. So in order to get back to the beginning of my row, I'll just simply do Control left arrow.
Blank A1.
All
Start
right.
of new data region.
So I just jumped over 16,000 cells to the left. So similarly, if I were to go down, I'm going to increase the value. Just as I go right, the letters go up to B, C, D, and eventually wrap back around to double A and double B and BA and whatnot. If I go down, my numbers will steadily increase.
Blank A2. Blank A3. Blank A4. Blank A5.
So I'm on the fifth row from the top. Topmost row on the sheet, on any sheet, is always going to be row 1. There is no row 0. There are no negative rows. There's nothing special. There's 1 through. Let's see how many rows encompass one sheet. I'm going to do Control down arrow to move to the bottom of the sheet, or in this case, the end of this column.
Blank A1,048,576. Start of new data
So
region.
just about 1,048,000 rows. And as we discussed last time, 1,048,000 times 16,000 and change is just over 16 billion cells. More cells in one sheet than there are human beings on the planet. 2 and change, 2 times and then some change. So if I do control down arrow once and control right arrow once,
blank XFD 1,048,576.
I'll be
Start
at
of new data region.
XFD 1,048,000. That's the bottom rightmost corner of this worksheet. If I do control left and control up, I'll be first control left.
Blank A1,040.
I'll be back at A1,048,000, which is the bottom of the sheet, but on the leftmost side. And if I do control up arrow,
blank A1. Start of new data region.
I'm back at A1. And here how it says start of new data region. We'll discuss that here in a quick sec. So just to quickly recap, columns are designated by letters, while rows are designated by numbers. The lower you go down a column, the further down you're going in terms of rows. The further right or the more right you go across a row, the higher your letter or you're moving across columns, and therefore the sequence of letters is moving sequentially, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, all the way to X, F, D. All right. Now let's talk about a cell address. A cell address, once again, is unique to one cell. There are 16 billion cells in one worksheet, and all cells have their own unique address. All right. Think of a cell as an address in a city. There are no duplicate addresses in one city. However, there are duplicate addresses in a country, heck, even in a state. For example, 4512 South Pleasant Valley Road is only found once in Austin, Texas. That is our lighthouse. But I can wager you right now that 4512 South Pleasant Valley Road is not the only that is not the only address or instance of that address in the entire United States. I can assure you I would be willing to bet about anything. And I know this because I've seen my own home address in other countries. Where I live right now, there's another address that's the exact same number and street with the same South prefix as where I live now in Gainesville, Florida. So, and what the analogy that I'm trying to draw right now is actually that a sheet is a city, while a workbook is a state or country, because each sheet is always going to have the same addresses, but the addresses will differ based on which sheet you're on. I could be on sheet 1, A1, or sheet 2, A1. And the contents of those addresses are going to change based on the sheet I'm in, just as 4512 South Pleasant Valley Road
From Austin Lighthouse to every
different in Austin as it is to, I don't know, Sheboygan, Wisconsin, just somewhere random. All right. So once again, the addresses are just the intersection of a cell, of a column and row. So let's give you a real world example of an address. Let's go to address D5. All right, D as in dog, 5. Now, I'm going to move right 4 times to get to D, right? Because I'm at A1 right now. So if I move 4 times,
blank D1, blank C1, blank D1.
Oh, I apologize. I'm going to move 3 times because I'm already on A1. So 3 movements to the right from A1 would put me on D1 since I already was on A1, right? I can't move 4 times to get to D because there's no way for me not to be on a column. All right, so here I am on D1 and I want to get to D5. So I'm going to move down 4 times to get to D5 from D1.
Blank D2, blank D3, blank D4, blank D5.
And here we are. So we are now on the 4th column and the 5th row. So we have moved 4 columns to the right and 5 rows down. All right. Cool. Now, this brings me to what's called a range. And this is a unit of data that is dynamic. It's always shifting based on where you are, right? So let's say you have let's say you have text, or let's say you have information or data modeled from A1 to D5, okay? That means that we have information in all the cells between A1 and D5. Let's think about what that encompasses, okay? We just moved 4 rows to the right, 4 columns to the right, and we moved 5 columns down. And everything within that range has information. How many cells does that make up? Let's go back up to A1.
Blank A5, blank A1. Start of new data region.
So let's start with the rows this time. So considering that I'm going to go 5 rows down.
Blank A2.
1,
blank A3.
3,
blank A4.
4,
blank A5.
5. All right, that's 5 rows down. Now let's move 4 columns to the right.
Blank B5. blank C5. blank D5.
And using simple arithmetic, let's find the actual area of this range. So we're 4 columns wide, and we're 4 columns wide and 5 rows long. That would be 4 times 5, or 20 cells. That means 20 cells are in our range. And that's what a range is. A range is just a begin and end point of information or data model. Let's give you another example. A1 to J10 would be 10 columns wide and 10 rows long. That would be easily 100 cells, right? Literally 10 times 10 is 100. So we have data across 100 cells, or we have data across 10 rows and 10 columns. Those two are synonymous. Because an Excel spreadsheet is so massive, it's very important to identify or assign ranges to know, how much data we're working with. All right, so there, just like a column and a row will always have 16,000 cells or 1 million cells based on, the measurement, columns and rows. So that's too many cells to count, or that's just too many cells to work with. So when I say, oh, my column is 8 cells long, that means that the column I'm working with is just part of a range, right? And this range is 8 rows long because my columns are 8 cells. And we know that on a column, each cell in a column is part of a different row. All right. I know we're throwing quite a lot of lingo, so if anyone's stumped or wants a repeat of an explanation, please don't be shy. I will gladly give you an explanation. Now let's model. Now we're going to model some data. Before we model data, I want to talk about data types. And in this little model that I'm going to build, we're going to use all of the data types in Excel. Okay. What a data model is, first of all, is just a way to present information. For example, if I'm building a sales report, how do I want my information to look? What sort of information am I going to be presenting? In the sales report, do I want to show the sales by month, by product? Or do I want to show the product sales by year, by quarter? So what do I want to show? Usually, when you're creating a data model, the standard way of doing things is to give each column its own data or its own different unique data, while each row is encompassed by these columns. And I'll show you. I know that sounds a little confusing right now, but in essence, each row should be one record or one instance of an item. So let's create a simple employee roster. We created one last time, but this time we're going to create an employee roster that contains all the data types in Excel. And by all of the data types in Excel, I'm referring to the 4 main data types. These are text, numbers, dates, and formulas. Okay, let's break it down. Text is anything that is not a number or formula or date. I mean, it really is that simple. My name, Eric Cifuentes, is text. The department that I work at, training and employment services, that's text. anything that is not a number or formula or date is text. And that's the most diverse pool of data that will ever exist, because I could write text in English or Japanese, or I can make text, there are so many letters and words I can use. But text is that. It's just anything that is not a number, formula, or date. Okay. The other three types of data are very restrictive. Numbers is the second most commonly used form of data in Excel. Numbers can be anything like currencies, right? $14, that's a number. Unless you do something like 14 space dollars, the word dollars, in which case that would be text, a combination of numbers and text, but the Excel program would see it as text because you entered the word dollars instead of the dollar sign. Okay. So avoid using things like that where you give currency or certain measurements, units of measurement, text values, because that's going to not utilize Excel to its fullest potential. And it's going to mess up formulas. And we'll talk about that here in a quick second. Okay. Next, continue on with numbers. Numbers can be presented in various different ways based on how you want to format them. Okay. When we'll look at formatting in the next webinar, diverse ways of formatting text and numbers. We'll look at that in the following webinar. In this webinar, I just want to discuss them and I'll show them in very basic fashion. So now we're going to talk about numbers and how they can be presented. And currency is a type of number, right? A dollar sign or a yen sign if you're in Japan, or a peso sign if you're in Mexico. Excel includes hundreds of different currencies, and you can use those. You can add decimal points. If you want to represent your currency with 2 decimals, that's something you can do. So that's pretty cool. Percentages, you can format your numbers to have percentages or decimals, or just decimals, or fractions, or you can go more advanced into like derivatives and other concepts. But numbers are just that. They're values that represent a numerical value. That's all. There's no text in a number. Okay. Dates and times. So this one's a little tricky. They're very simple. Dates have to be written in a certain way for them to be read as dates by the program. All right. If you write something like March, 24, 2020, it might not be read as a date. Okay. So when you write a date, you have to write it with the day / month / year. Wait, I'm sorry, it's month, day, year, or year, month, day, right? It depends which region you're from, but you have to write it in a certain fashion, which I'll show you here in a little bit. And you can also write in times as 01:44 to represent 1:44 in the morning. And that's pretty cool. And I'll show you how to enter a date properly and how to format a date. We'll look at formatting dates next week or next webinar. And that's really cool because you can do cool things with dates using formulas as well. How do you add a date? Well, you can add, 4. If I want to add +4 to Monday, I'll be in Friday, right? If I do, I want to know what date or what day what day is 4 days from now and what day it falls on. I can do a simple formula. And speaking of formulas, a formula is literally what gives Excel its just monstrous, powerful data crunching capabilities. And I mean, there are literally an endless range of possibilities with formulas. But in essence, a formula is a tool for automation. All right, and something as simple as addition or multiplication can be used to automate processes. And I'm going to show that to you. For example, let's say I have the hours worked in a week in one cell, and in the other cell, I have the hourly wage I earn. So 12 times 40, right? In Excel, I could do 12 star 40, and that's 12 times 40. Or I can use cell references, and we'll talk about that here in a little bit when I demonstrate a simple formula. All right. So let's create a very basic data model. And stop me if I'm going too fast. Anyone? All right. Let's put together a simple formula starting here at, a simple data model starting up here at row 1, column A.
Blank A1. Start of new data region.
Here we are at the top left corner, top row, leftmost column. Okay, so across the top of any range, you're always going to have your column headers, and those tell you what goes under each column, right? That's part of what I was trying to explain previously when we were discussing data models. Each column is going to have its own information about different records. So let's go ahead and do a very basic employee roster. So here in A1, I'm going to write employee name.
EPLOYE space AE.
So I wrote employee name. To save the contents of a cell, I can simply navigate away from it with the right arrow,
Blank
or
B1.
down arrow, or the tab, or the enter. Right and down arrow are obviously going to move you in a respective direction. Left and up arrow work as well, but I'm at the top and leftmost, so I can't go any further up or left from here. So I navigated to the right, and if I navigate back to the left,
Employee name A1.
you'll see now instead of it saying
Blank B1.
blank, it says
Employee name A1.
employee name, because that's just what I wrote here in cell
A1.
A1. Again, insert C tells you which cell you're at. All right, now I'm going to right arrow.
Blank B1.
And here I'm going to put higher date.
AISRE DATE.
And now I'm going to do control enter because I want to save this cell, but not navigate away from it.
Control enter, higher date B1.
See?
Higher date B1.
I literally saved the contents of the cell without actually having to do right arrow or down arrow and then arrowing back to it. Okay. Efficiency, it's pretty cool. Okay. Let's right arrow one more time.
Blank C1.
And here we're going to put
Double
weekly
space
hours. And we'll arrow to the right.
Blank D1.
In D1, we're going to put wage.
WHE.
That's our hourly wage.
Blank E1.
And in E1, we're going to finish things off with a simple
double EKLY space WWEINGS. Blank F1.
All right, so let's go back to A1 and let me show you what the column headers that I've set. All right.
Weekly earnings E1. Start of new data region.
So under each column, we're going to put the corresponding value that the column tells us to put. All right, this lays down the very, very important and essential foundation to give a model or a range or a table or whatever you want to call it. In this case, it's a model. This gives it gives me a method to the madness. It gives you an idea of what to look for, how to look for it, and where something belongs. For example, in column A,
E1.
Oh,
employee name A1.
In column A,
A1.
Here on row 1, column A, we have
sheet 1, employee name A1.
Employee name. That means as we travel down column A, for example, down here,
blank A2.
In A2, we'll have the name of an employee.
Employee name A1. Hire date B1.
Here in hire date, we'll put the hire date. That's all. Nothing else comes down this column. You don't put wages down this column. You don't put anything because that's going to disrupt the flow of our data. And it's just going to make things look messy and it's going to break formulas and it's just not good. So we want to be organized. We want to be methodical. And we want to think out what we want to represent, where everything should go before you actually carry out into action what you're trying to do. All right. Always model in your head what you want your model to look like in person. So here we have on column B, we have the hire date.
Weekly hours, C1.
Column C is our weekly hours.
Wage, D1.
Over here is our wage. I'm sorry, not over here. That's so silly. In column D, we have our wage, and that's our hourly wage.
Weekly earnings, E1.
And over here, I need to stop that, man. Okay, and to the right of that, in column E, we have our weekly earnings. Okay, and let's put all of this together. So,
employee name, A1, edge of current data region.
Control left arrow back to A1. weekly, employee name. I'm going to arrow down once.
Blank A2.
Now I'm on A1. I arrow down once. Now I am on A2, row 2. And here's our first record. So because I'm on column A, I know that I have to put my employee's name here. So I'm going to put in John Smith.
JOHN space SITH.
No capitals, of course. I recommend you capitals to preserve, capitalize to preserve professionalism.
Control Enter. John Smith A2. John Smith A2.
So here at A2, check this out.
Employee name A1.
A1, and if I go down once from A1 to A2,
John Smith A2.
John Smith, because I know my names go down the A column. Now I'm going to go to the right.
Blank B2. Hire date B1.
Here's my hire date at B1. So if I go down once,
Blank B2.
I can put in a date. And this is how you enter dates into an Excel spreadsheet, okay? I could enter something like January.
UARY. Space.
What if I don't know how to spell January? Like I forget how to spell it. See what I mean? Now Excel's not going to recognize January 1, 2020 as a
blank B3.
as an actual date. Check this out.
January 1st, 2020, B2.
It's just not, it doesn't look the same and it doesn't format it as such. All right. Because you can get Excel to format your dates to look nice and proper and professional. So just so you know, enter it as such, as I'm about to show you. Enter your date as such. So I'm going to hit delete,
blank
and that's
B2.
going to delete the contents of my cell. That's all you got to do to delete a cell. Just hit delete on it or backspace. Okay. Now let's enter the real hire date using the real date format that Excel will see and consume and output as a date properly. So I'm going to do it in the standard American form of showing dates, where you put in the month, then the day, then the year. I always found that very fascinating and strange. But here we go. I'm going to add January 1st of 2000. That's the hire date here. So we'll do 01,
01,
and then slash,
and
then we'll do 01 again. No, we'll do 02 just to preserve, to give different numbers. So January 2nd, all right, 02.
02.
Now slash 2000.
2000.
Okay. Now I'm going to hit Control Enter.
Control Enter. 1/2/2000 B2. 1/2/2000 B2.
So now it's formatted a certain way, and it actually appears as a proper date. And now I can do all kinds of things with this. I can use the format cells dialog to actually use calendar. It's gonna, I can change it to look like a proper date with a weekday in an actual written text month. But that's going to take what's called formatting, and we'll look at that later. But that's how you enter a date. I also notice how it got rid of the 01. It got rid of the 0, not the 1. Once again, check this out.
Sheet 1, 1/2/2000 B2.
See, so I got rid of the zeros because it sees them as unnecessary, but I still input them anyways. I don't think it's necessary to input the zeros because it's just going to remove them anyways, but it's very important to include the slashes. You need the slashes. Very important not to use any spaces. Just don't use spaces. All right. Then you're converting this into text. All right. That's all it is. It's going to, and you can also use the standard European or the world method of year followed by a month and followed by a day. It's just here we use the, the standard month, day, year. So it'll recognize both of them, but just enter them properly. Give your year a 4 digits and give your month at least 1 digit and give your dates 2 digits. Always give your dates 2 digits. Okay. And always, always, always include slashes between your values, no spaces. So for January 1st, 2000, it's 01/01/2000. All right.
Hire date, weekly hours, C1.
Here's weekly hours.
Blank, C2.
So to the right of my hire date, I'm going to enter John Smith's weekly hours.
40. Control Enter 40 C2
40
C2.
And I could enter 40.5. Let's say John worked 40.5 hours. We'll do that here in a sec. All right, simple as that.
Weekly hour, wage, D1.
Now we're gonna go down here to wage.
Blank, D2.
All right, to the right of my weekly hours, my hourly wage is going to be, let's pay him handsomely. He's a
2, column
$20
9.
an hour guy. Good for John.
Blank, E2. Weekly earnings, E1.
All right.
Wage,
So
D1.
now let's see what we got here.
Weekly earnings.
We got weekly earnings, but let's see what we got down here. Let's see what our record, which is the coalition or the coalescing of all our columns. Let's see what our record consists of. So below row A1, or below row 1, we're going to go to row 2. So starting at cell A2.
John Smith, A2. 1/2/2000, B2. 40, C2. 29, D2.
Oh, I added 29 instead of 20, but that's okay. I can do one of two things. To avoid giving John an accidental pay increase, we can either just type 20 over this 29, which would delete. You could have an essay, a Shakespearean play in one cell. And if you go in there and you type in hi, it's going to replace that Shakespearean play with hi. Okay, so there's no need to delete everything, go in there and select all and delete. You can just type over it. Or you can open what's called the edit cell dialog or the edit cell box by pressing F2 on a cell. So
F2, edit 29.
Here it said edit 29. Now I'm in a little mini word processor, and this little mini word processor allows me to essentially treat this cell like a Word document now. Look what happens when I press up arrow.
29, 29.
I'm pressing down arrow, and up arrow,
29.
and it's just saying 29 because now I'm in just the edit box of this cell. All right, so now if I
9.
If I move here and I press the delete key,
blank,
I've deleted the 9 instead of the whole cell. Now I can just enter a 0.
0.
Save this with Control Enter.
Control Enter. 20, D2, 20,
Now I just
D2.
put in 20. All right, that's pretty cool. So if it's something that requires just a small editing, there's no need to retype everything. Just find the cell, hit F2, and it'll place you into that little mini word processor, which is just the edit box for that one cell. And you can do your magic in there. You can use your selection commands. You can delete just parts of a cell and replace it, and then just hit Control Enter to save your work. Again, Control Enter will save your work. F2 will place you into the one cell edit box, just that one cell, and you'll be able to edit the contents of it. All right. Now let's move one to the right.
Blank, E2.
And over here in column E,
weekly earnings, E1.
It's weekly earnings. So let's go back down.
Blank, E2.
And enter a very basic formula, okay? How are we going to get Mr. Smith's weekly earnings? Simple. We're going to multiply the hours he worked in 1 week
40, C2.
Times his wage.
20, D2.
So
blank, E2.
Here we can do one of two things. Okay, we can type in 40 times 20 and we got his wage. So let me show you. Formulas are always prefixed with an equal sign, as in X equals Y. So before you type in any formula, you want to type in an equal sign.
Column 6, edit equals, type in the formula and press enter.
And now Excel goes, oh, type in a formula, then press enter. Okay, so check this out. I'm going to multiply 20 times
star
40.
40.
Now I'm going to hit Control Enter to save it.
Control Enter. 800 has formula. E2. 800 has
and
formula.
Instead of telling me 40 star 20, it told me, what did it tell me?
Sheet 1, 800 has formula. E2.
It told me a few things. 800, and then it told me has formula. That's how Excel knows, oh, this is a formula. So I got to tell this guy that it's a formula he's looking at. So if I were to press F2 to enter that edit cells dialog box, you would, or that edit cells combo, little edit cells box, you would not see the word, the value 800 in there. You would instead see
F2, entering table with 25 columns. 40 equals 20 star 40.
equals 20 star 40. Whatever you typed originally is what you're going to see when you press F2 to edit it. You're not going to edit 800 because the 800 doesn't exist. It's just a result of this formula we wrote.
Escape.
All right.
800 has formula E2.
I hit escape and that canceled any edits that I made. Now, that is pretty cool, but we're not doing it right. Okay. The last thing I want to talk about tonight is what are called cell references. Check this out. Over here,
20 D2, 40 C2.
we have two cells, 40 and 20, or we have two cells,
C2,
C2
20 D2,
and D2. All right, but each cell has its own data in there. Column
40 C2.
Column C has 40. This is the number of hours Mr. Smith worked. Okay, that's 40. And over to the right in column D,
20 D2.
we have Mr. Smith's wage. Okay, let's now say that Mr. Smith received $1 raise. All right.
800 has formula E2.
I would have to change two things right now. I would have to change the 20
D2.
to 21 over here at D2. But would that change the formula result over at E2?
800 has formula E2.
If you said no, you would be right, because into that formula, we typed in what are called numerical values or hard values. You don't want to do that. You want to avoid having to do that in Excel. Check this out. Because if you need to create a change, the automation is negated if you enter actual numbers into a formula. You're taking the most powerful feature of Excel and just boop, negating its use. No need to do that. Instead, you want to use what are called cell references. And what that is just you're literally referencing another cell in a formula. So let's look at these two cells over here to the left.
20 D2, 40 C2.
So we have C2,
20 D2,
and D2.
40 C2.
40 hours worked in C2,
20 D2,
times the wage 20 in D2. Okay, so now
800.
my formula would look like equals C2 star D2. It literally is the same, but it's a little different because it gives this formula an ability to change with the cells. Check this out. So I'm just going to type over this here in E2. I'm going to type in equals,
entering table with 20,
equals C2
C2
times with the star,
star,
which is shift 8, times D2.
D2.
All right. I'll hit control enter.
Control enter. 800 has formula E2. 800 has formula E2.
Same value has been demonstrated or has outputted with one difference. Now, inside of this cell, instead of having numbers, what do I have?
F2 enter equals C2 star D2.
Equals C2 star D2. All right. So
Escape.
now,
800.
Mr. Smith, he got a raise. Good for Mr. Smith.
20 D2.
I go over one to the left to column D to his corresponding record on row 2, and I hit F2.
F2 entering table with 20.
And I want to change this 20 to a 21 to give him that $1 raise.
0.
Get rid of that 0, add the 1.
1.
Hit control enter to save this.
Control enter. 21 D2. 21
All right.
D2.
We saved it. Now I'm going to go one to the right where our formula was.
840 has formula E2.
Check that out. It changed without us having to do a thing. All right. That's why always in your formulas, use your cell references. Always use your cell references, because now to change these formula results or to change the result of one formula, I just got to change the cells that are being referenced by it. I went into cell D2, which was John's wage, and I upped it by $1, and it fixed the formula. That's all there is to it. So always use cell references in your formula. Let's do a few quick records. I'm gonna show you one last thing here, and that's the really cool way of just making Excel super efficient and powerful. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and fast track
blank A3
down to A3. I'm gonna add some more names. I'm gonna add James
J-A-E-S space
Smith, his brother.
S-A-I-T-H.
All right.
Blank B3.
In B3, His hire date was 02
dash
02
dash 202
He's very new. 2020.
Control Enter 2/2/2020 B3
Right.
2 blank C3
Over here, he works 40
4
hours a week
0
as well.
blank D3
And over at column D, we'll say his starting wage was at
1
15.
cop 5
Very boring.
blank E3
All right. Here at E3, I could do the same formula, right? But in this case, instead of multiplying C2 star D2, I would just do C3
40 C3
times D3.
15 D3
Okay.
blank
Or check this out. Up here at
840 as formula E2
E2, I have a formula already. Check this out. Look how cool this is. All I gotta do is put my focus on this cell with the formula that I already wrote
E2
at E2 and do Control C.
Copy selection to clipboard.
And I copied the formula to my clipboard. Not the 800, but what's inside here.
F2 row 3 equals C2 star D2.
It copied equals C2 star D2.
Escape.
Okay?
800
You're asking me, well, how useful? Why is that useful? Check this out.
blank E3.
I'm gonna go down 1 to E3, and I'm gonna paste this.
Paste it from clipboard.
Oh,
8 cop blank pasted from clipboard 600 as formula E3.
check that. Why does that say 600? Why I copied E from E2? It said in there. It said equals C2 star D2. Why on earth
840 as formula
this
E2.
Here at E2 say 840 as it should,
E2
but here at E3 where I just copied and pasted
600 as formula E3.
it says 600. That doesn't make any sense. Check this out. Let me hit F2 here.
E3
At E3, the formula that we just pasted down one cell. I'm gonna hit F2 and check out what it did.
F2 entering table with 25 equals C3 star D3.
This is what's called a relative cell reference. And don't worry about the lingo too much here, but check this out. I copied and pasted this down one row, and Excel was like, oh, he copied this down one row, but it's referencing the same columns. I'm just gonna copy the same columns, but since he moved down one row,
Escape.
I'm gonna automatically move down the reference to the next row. So it automated it for you. You didn't even have to write it, and this will work. You could go down to row 1 million, and it's gonna do the same thing. For example, check this out. I'm gonna copy this.
Copy selection to clipboard E3.
At E3, I'm gonna paste it down one more row.
Blank E4. Pasted from clipboard 0 as formula E4.
And here at E4, it says 0. Why is that? Because we haven't written any values over here on row 4. Look.
F2 entering equals C4 star D4.
C4 times D4 because we copied it 1 cell down, but it's the same columns that were being referenced, right? C's and D's. So Excel goes, oh, okay, you want the same columns, C and D, but you're copying it down one row to row 4. So I'm going to give you a big fat 0. You know why?
Blank D4.
Because on D4,
blank C4,
and C4, there's nothing.
blank
But
D4.
let's go ahead and add
A4.
one last record down here before we wrap things up. Check this out. I'm going to give a Jane
space
Smith,
S
the triumvirate
A.
of siblings, a romantic. It's in Rome. All right, Jane Smith.
Blank D4.
She was hired on
01 dash.
blank 09-22-2001. She came in there way later than Mr. John, but before James did.
Control Enter 9/22/2019.
All right, so on September 22nd of 2019. All right.
Blank C4.
Over here, she also works. She worked 40 hours as well.
Column 4 0.
All right.
Blank D4.
And she earns $18 an hour.
1 8.
All right, and now let's check out what the formula says. The formula, we copied down one row that said 0 because these two cells right here, C5,
the cell being edited as D4 and book.
C4 and D4 had nothing in them, so there's nothing to copy.
Control Enter 18 D4.
So let's see what our formula says over here on E4.
720 as formula
go.
E4.
There you go. It already filled in that formula with 720. Instead of it saying 0, now it says 720. Okay? There, and that's all there is to it. All right? That's all there is to this, and it's really, really cool. Now check out how big our range is. So let's go up to A1.
Employee name A1. Edge of current data
So
region.
row 1 has our column headers. And let's go down to the bottom right of this range, right? And check this out now. Remember when control down arrow and control right arrow moved us to row 1 million in column XFD? They don't do that anymore because we're moving in a range now. So control down arrow, I'm going to venture, is going to move me from A1 down to A4.
Jane Smith, A4, edge of current data region.
There you go. And I'm going to venture that control right arrow is going to move me from A4 over to E4.
720 has formula E4, edge of current data
Pretty cool,
region.
right? So this range runs from A1 to E4. It's 5 columns wide and 4 rows high. 5 by 4 or 20. All right, there's 4 records in this range because the topmost row is our column headers. That is not a record. Those are our column headers. The 4 rows below the topmost row are each an individual record. That is our employee. Each employee's information, their hire date, their hours worked per week, and their hourly wage and weekly earnings. That's our cell range. 20 cells, roughly exactly 4 records long and 1 row of column headers. To get back to the top, I can do control up arrow to get to the top of this column now, column E.
Weekly earnings, E1, edge of current data region.
Back to row 1 and control left arrow.
Employee name, A1, edge of current
Took me
data.
back to employee name, A1. All right, now one last thing.
Jane Smith, A4, edge of
Control
current
down
data
arrow
region.
once to Jane Smith. Here on A4, if I do control down arrow again,
blank, A1 million.
I'll be back to A1 million, blah, blah, blah. All right. But let's say I'll go back up here,
blank,
skip a row,
blank, A6
to A6, and here I'll put the word dog.
D, G, control enter, dog. A.
All right, now let's go back up to A1. All right, from A1, I'm going to do control down arrow.
Jane Smith, A4, edge of current data region.
Yep, that's the edge of this current data region. A4, control down arrow now.
Dog, A6, start of new data
I'm
region.
at A6. That's because I added a blank row between 4 and 6. And now Excel goes, oh, there's a blank row between rows 4 and 6. That means that row 6 is the beginning of a new data region. But if I do control down arrow again, I'll be back at
blank, A1
1 million.
Dog.
So that's pretty cool. The control keys give you some fast track, allow you to fast track your way around a workbook, a worksheet. And it's really, really cool. So we covered a lot today, but this is really just an inner look into what our classes look like. And again, this is just the beginner levels of Excel. It really is. There's so much
From
more.
Austin Lighthouse to everyone, contact information.
And the contact information is right there as well. Again, and I'll recite it once more. Our phone number is 512-647-4625 if you want classes. But man, if you guys want or know people whose Excel skills are very, very strong, but you feel like they could learn more, or they feel themselves that they could learn more, we've got you covered. We can teach you things that can truly automate so many things in Excel and that you can use to make Excel so powerful, like a pivot table. It's just like a master summary of things in Excel, of numbers and values. Or if you want to learn advanced functions, right? There are functions and formulas in Excel. Today we looked at something super basic where we just multiply the values of 2 cells. You could do that. You could add the values of 1 million cells, or you could use what's called logic to create other things to have, to create other events in Excel. So once again, thank you for joining us today, and thank you for checking us out in the future. I want to apologize for the archive. It's being updated as we speak. I promise. We just added some webinars. It just takes some time. We've been backed up, but we are uploading these to the website. We're up to webinar 22 today, and we will try to upload these as fast as possible for you guys. It takes time. Uploading takes time. If you wish to add your comments or give us suggestions of other presentations that you may want us to present, whether they be new presentations or repeats of previous presentations, because it's we've covered quite a lot of information in the last year or so. Let us know. Let us know what you want us to repeat or what you want us to cover that we haven't covered before. We will happily help you out with that. It's us. It's all on us, and you guys are the audience. So reach out to myself at Eric.Cifuentes, Mr. Aaron Hoffman at Aaron.Hoffman. Call us. Call the lighthouse itself. Ask to be transferred to us if you didn't catch the numbers. Whatever you got to do to get a hold of us, go for it. All right, guys. Stay tuned next week, in the following week, 2 weeks from now, we're going to conclude this beginner intro to Excel with more data modeling. We're going to make a slightly bigger range. And this time we're going to format the different data values, and we're going to use different types of formulas to make really cool things happen. We're going to add rows and columns, and we're going to make currencies look nice and professional and uniform. And it's going to be really, really cool. And we'll recover some of the stuff we covered today, and we'll expand upon some things. And it's going to be lots and lots of fun. By far, Excel is my most enjoyable class to teach. I love it so much. All right, guys. Any questions or comments or hands, Aaron?
Nope, that's it.
That's it. Fantastic. All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much to Ms. Dr. Laura Miller from Northwest Eye Care, and to anyone listening to us in the future. My name is Eric Cifuentes for Eric Hoffman and TAB, Austin Lighthouse. Have a wonderful night. Good night, everyone.
Meeting met.
Take care.
Alt F4 and give feed.